Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for those who've already joined. My name is Naina Gupta. I am the Associate Director of Policy here at NIJC. I know this is a hectic time for so many of us, and I'm so grateful that you could join us to hear more about how we can support our clients and immigrant communities. My plan for today is to give you a brief overview of the benefits that immigrants are and are not eligible for under the federal stimulus packages that were recently passed by Congress. So today's presentation will focus on 4 benefit areas: direct cash payments, unemployment insurance, COVID testing and treatment, as well as paid medical and family leave. I will present for about 20 minutes, and then we will have 10 to 15 minutes for questions. We're asking that you write your questions in the comments section in your webinar screen, and any that I can't get to in our time here today, I'm happy to follow up on later on. So the information in today's presentation, for those of you who don't know, is based on the same content covered in a resource that we developed here at NIJC recently for our clients, as well as others around the state. The English and Spanish versions of that Know Your Rights document is attached as handouts to this presentation. It is also on our NIJC website. We really encourage you to share that with your clients and partners and other organizations and immigrant communities. The goal of these resources was to orient our clients to the federal stimulus packages recently passed by Congress to help them understand what they're eligible for, what they're not eligible for, and what they should be asking for at this time. So the content is focused on their needs. Our clients are 200% at poverty line. Many of them are in Illinois, so the resource is Illinois specific. We will be posting an Indiana specific resource soon as well. Finally, at NIJC, we're not public benefits experts. It is our job and mission to support our clients as much as possible. And so our hope with this resource, again, is to orient our clients to be able to advocate adequately for themselves, for the benefits they can receive, and then also to point them towards other resources or experts who can help them on issues that we may not be able to advise on. So to get started, so Congress passed 3 relief packages since the outbreak of COVID-19, and this includes the CARES Act, which was passed on March 27th. It's a $2 trillion relief package providing economic relief and healthcare support. So, while some of the relief in the CARES Act does support our clients, overall it does fall short of meeting their basic healthcare and economic needs. And you'll hear more about that as I talk about each of these benefits areas. I think it's worth noting that there is a bit of a complex interaction between what's provided for in the CARES Act and already existing federal laws as well as existing state laws. So many of the benefits that we're talking about today are dispersed at the state level. And as many of us have heard and seen, our state systems are definitely inundated at this time. And so that means slow disbursement of some of these benefits, delays in communication between the federal government and actors at the state level. So what does that mean for our clients? It means that we can advise them about what they're eligible for, and we should tell them what they can ask for. But they may not necessarily receive those benefits right away. This landscape is changing in real time, and so it's worth pointing that out to clients when you are advising them. There are differences between what one local Medicaid office might be doing within a state and another. And so these differences will affect what our clients are able to and able to access at this time. So to get started, first, direct cash payments, which most of us have heard about. The CARES Act provides $1,200 to single individuals earning $75,000 or less a year, and $2,400 to married couples earning $150,000 or less a year. There is some amount of cash payment available to folks who earn more than that on a sliding scale basis. In addition to this direct cash payment, children are eligible to receive $500 from the federal government if they are dependent on an eligible adult. So if they can file as a dependent of an eligible adult, and I'll get back to how that affects our clients in a moment. What is key to understanding for our clients and immigrant communities is are the eligibility requirements for these cash payments. So first, to receive this cash payment, person must have a Social Security number. So what that means is that any of our clients who have been filing taxes in the past using ITIN numbers and who don't have status here, they are not eligible for the direct cash payment. There's also a residency requirement. So folks with a green card who have permanent residency meet that requirement. For any clients who have recently arrived to the United States within the past few years, the stimulus package has what's called the substantial presence test to determine whether an individual meets the residency requirement for the cash payments. Generally, for clients who've been in this country for the past 3 years, they will meet the test. For any clients you have or folks that you're working with who are more recent arrivals or who've been in and out of the country over the past 3 years, we would recommend that you look at the details of the test and apply it to that specific situation. Our resources do include a link to the substantial presence test so that you can use it effectively. In addition to the green card, residency requirement and Social Security requirement, it's also required that an individual has filed taxes recently, so either in 2018 and or 2019. An important point here is that if we have clients who were eligible to file in one of these 2 years, but have not done so yet or failed to meet the deadline or had trouble doing so, they can still file their taxes and receive the direct cash payment so long as they meet the other eligibility requirements. So in other words, delay in filing of taxes shouldn't prohibit folks from receiving these payments. So some issues to think about. So recently we had an NIJC client, a single mother with 2 children. Her 2 children arrived to the United States a few years ago, unaccompanied, on their own. They were ultimately reunited with their mother, and based on 2 pending applications that they have right now with USCIS, they were able to receive Social Security numbers. However, their mother still remains undocumented and without a Social Security number. What this means regarding these direct cash payments is that those 2 children cannot apply for the $500 cash payment in the CARES Act because their mother is not eligible for that. So in other words, she cannot get the economic relief that she needs for her 2 children. We also here at NIJC, as many of you may have clients who are married and in mixed status marriages. So where there's one spouse who has residency and a Social Security number and would meet the requirements here, and another who's been filing taxes with an ITIN number and does not have a Social Security number. So then what does it mean for those families? So in a mixed status marriage, the person with the Social Security number and residency is eligible for the cash payment, but would have to file separately. But filing separately could make one of the 2 ineligible for other healthcare benefits down the road that are large and more critical and dependent on joint filing. So in those situations, in our resources, we advise clients to try to find a tax lawyer or expert or advisor who can help them work through that issue so they're not putting themselves at an economic disadvantage down the road just to receive a cash payment now. So moving on to unemployment insurance. So the CARES Act, as passed, extended unemployment benefits by 13 weeks beyond what states can already currently offer. It also adds $600 to boost weekly payments that people can receive. Again, I just want to note here that there has been significant delay in the availability of this extra money and this extension of time at the state level in many states, including in Illinois. But in terms of important pieces of information for our clients regarding unemployment benefits, the most important thing to know is that in order to qualify for unemployment, you must have valid work authorization or any immigration status that gives you authorization to work. So, that would be a work permit, it could be permanent residency, DACA status, TPS status. But it's not just authorization in the moment that matters. So timing of that authorization is critical for unemployment eligibility. So you must be authorized in Illinois at the time you apply for unemployment benefits. But you also must be authorized throughout the time you're receiving that benefit. So for folks who are at risk of their work authorization expiring during this time of COVID, they may not be able to receive unemployment beyond the term of their work authorization. But in addition to this, the unemployment benefit rules in Illinois require that an individual also be authorized during what is called the base period. And in Illinois, the base period is give or take about a year prior to the application for unemployment. Our materials talk specifically about the definition of the base period. It is the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters before you start receiving unemployment insurance. So what this means for clients that we've seen is that, if, for example, we recently had a client who'd been working under the table for 2 years in the same job and then received work authorization a few weeks ago, and soon after was laid off from her job because of COVID-19. Unfortunately, she would not be able to benefit from unemployment insurance under the current eligibility rules because during those 2 years of initial employment with her employer, she did not have valid work authorization. So some other types of work that are not covered by unemployment insurance include some agricultural work, some domestic work. There are also areas of work that were not traditionally covered by unemployment in Illinois that are now covered under the CARES Act. So individuals working as contractors or freelancers can now benefit from unemployment insurance. And those specifics and details are in our resources as well as the unemployment website for Illinois. It is worth highlighting some COVID-19 special circumstances that might apply to any of our clients. So for folks who have temporarily lost a job due to COVID-19, who've been told, don't come to work right now, there's no job for you, but when the economy gets going again, we will rehire you. Those folks are eligible for unemployment in this context. Folks who are forced to stay home to care for somebody with COVID or because of a quarantine order, those folks can also qualify for unemployment if they've had to leave their job. But they still must meet these other minimum requirements, including valid work authorization. The Know Your Rights KYR resources attached here talk more about the length of time that folks will receive unemployment, where they can file. But a really key point here to emphasize to clients who are fearful to approach public agencies online or in person to receive such benefits is that receiving unemployment insurance will not count against our clients if and when they are applying for a visa or adjustment of status to receive a green card. What this means is they will not be considered a public charge under the new public charge rule that was passed last year. And that's obviously, again, important for our clients who are fearful or nervous to interact with government agencies to receive the support that they need at this time. So moving on, COVID-19 testing and treatment. The stimulus packages allow states to use Medicaid to provide testing to all uninsured people, but it does keep the Medicaid eligibility requirements the same. What does that mean? It means that undocumented individuals are not eligible in the CARES Act. The stimulus package also does not cover the cost of treatment. That is left up to states. So to fill in, states have taken important steps to have COVID testing and treatment covered under emergency Medicaid, which can be extended to undocumented individuals. So in New York, for example, Governor Cuomo expanded emergency Medicaid right away to include both testing and treatment to cover immigrant communities. Right now in Illinois, we have free testing for all. Of course, the caveat here is that we know there are limited tests in general, but for our clients who do need testing, they shouldn't have to pay for it. In terms of treatment, for our clients who are covered by Medicaid who need treatment at a clinic or at a hospital, they should be covered. For folks who are undocumented and are not on Medicaid, they should be encouraged to apply for emergency Medicaid, which we are told will cover those clients for treatment. Obviously, public health, officials have emphasized that folks with mild COVID treatments will be told to self-care and treat at home, and it's those with severe treatments who will need in-clinic and in-hospital care who will be applying for this kind of coverage. There are also clinics across the state that provide charity care or low-cost care, and we've linked folks to a resource where they can find those clinics within our Know Your Rights document. And again here, this is not on the slide, but just worth emphasizing to your clients that receiving care or treatment or testing for COVID-19 will not count against them in the public charge determination if they try to apply for a visa or a green card down the road. And so our last category of benefits, paid medical and family leave. So for any of our clients who work for an employer with less than 500 employees, those folks could be eligible to receive emergency paid sick leave if they themselves have COVID-19 or if they are caregiving for an individual who has COVID-19. And that emergency medical leave for COVID-19 is regardless of immigration status. Now, it doesn't apply to all employers. There have been some difficulties since this does apply to only employers with less than 500 employees. We've seen that anybody who works, for example, for a large grocery store chain would not be eligible for this emergency paid COVID medical leave that was provided for in the CARES Act. And employers in this situation can only deny medical leave for first responders and medical workers. Anybody else with COVID or caring for someone with COVID and employed by an employer like this would be eligible for 2 weeks of this leave. In some instances, depending again on who your employer is, you can also take paid family leave to care for a child because that child no longer has school or childcare due to the COVID pandemic. So this extension of paid family leave applies to public agencies and private sector entities with more than 50 employees. And it requires those employers to pay 2/3 of an individual's regular rate of pay. Something confusing for those of you who are listening probably already noticed this. Something that's confusing between these two different areas of leave is that the eligibility requirements are different. Which employers are required to offer this is different between the two kinds of leave, and that's because the emergency paid sick leave in the CARES Act, that first category you see in the slide, is a new affirmative type of leave authorized by Congress, whereas the second is really an extension of the Family Medical Leave Act, an already existing medical law. And so which employers are covered depends on which kind of leave our client might be asking for. And again, there are links in our resources for folks who need more details on the specifics of this kind of leave. A point that I'll add that's not in our slide is that for both kinds of leave, our clients should not have to interact with the federal government to receive this leave. They will only be interacting with directly with their employer. And that's important to share with clients who have any fear of kind of advocating for or asking for this leave. So to kind of, wrap up before we take any questions, what's next from Congress on benefits for immigrants? So, as you can see, there are a lot of loopholes and specifics in the CARES Act and the other stimulus packages passed so far that really don't provide the economic support and relief needed by our clients, and they don't address the realities faced by so many of the clients that we work with. And so here at NIJC, on our policy team in Washington, D.C., we continue to advocate and fight for future relief and stimulus packages that better address the needs of our clients and communities. So, our current priority items and priority asks, as you can see here on the slide, include immigrant access to care, so ensuring that COVID-19 related testing and care is free regardless of immigration status. Increased immigrant access to financial support, so ensuring that these cash benefits, like the direct payments I just discussed, do not exclude undocumented immigrants and families. So, reducing the Social Security requirements, easing up things for mixed status families. It is also on our priority list to push on the public charge rule to halt the application of DHS and the State Department's public charge rules that were passed last year, so that any benefit applied for or received by our clients in this time is never used against them. Work authorization extension. So we are asking Congress to automatically extend work authorizations for those who are facing expiration. And finally, we continue to push for restrictions on ICE immigration enforcement during this pandemic. And that includes restrictions on enforcement and detention, including mandatory releases from detention, where we know the outbreak of COVID-19 puts our detained clients at high risk. We're also asking for free access to phones and hygiene supplies for those who are in custody, the bare minimum. And we are asking that the Department of Justice suspend prosecutions, criminal prosecutions, for unauthorized entry and re-entry of folks coming to this country. So on that note, I will start fielding any questions that folks have. I know this is a lot of specific content covered in a short time, but hopefully gives you and ultimately your clients a sense of what Congress has been able to achieve for our clients and communities at this time.
Okay, Nena, the first question that we have today is, should you apply for emergency Medicaid now or wait until you get sick? Is it on the ABE site?
So I think that's a good question. I think my understanding of emergency Medicaid is that you would be applying for it at the time that you need the treatment. So if you are at a hospital or at a clinic, you should apply for that coverage because you're asking for COVID-19 treatment. Now, there could be a significant delay in receiving that coverage, but my understanding of the way the coding works for emergency Medicaid in Illinois is that you'd only be able to request that at the time of treatment.
Okay. Let's see. Do you know whether asylum applicants with employment authorization in Indiana have the same access to unemployment as in Illinois? And then a similar question was, do we have any resources that apply to Indiana residents?
Right. So it's a great question because, what makes you eligible for unemployment insurance has a lot more to do with state eligibility requirements than anything in the CARES Act. And our current resources are Illinois specific, especially the unemployment section, we will be posting an Indiana-specific resource within the next week or so that will discuss unemployment eligibility for folks in Indiana. Work authorization is required in Indiana, and if an individual had that through an asylum application, that would be a first and important step towards eligibility. But you'd have to see whether that client met other eligibility requirements, which we will cover in the Indiana specific resource.
Would you be able to clarify if there's any cash assistance available for undocumented individuals?
Yes, so again, undocumented individuals do not have social security numbers and therefore do not meet the eligibility requirement for the direct cash payment. In other words, no, they cannot receive direct cash assistance at this time. And undocumented parents who have U.S. citizen children with social security numbers, those children cannot receive the direct cash payment of $500 either.
Okay.
And I'll just say that that is something that we continue to fight against and push back on for future stimulus packages at NIJC, since that has excluded a large amount of our clients and immigrant population across the country.
Okay. Is there any guidance for those with visas expiring or with the visa stamp expiring during this period of travel restrictions? Would you know?
So I'm not sure by guidance if in terms of renewing visas or the process for that. I unfortunately don't have that information with me right now. I know that USCIS, the agency who often deals with these issues, has had a changing landscape of rules and notices about what's happening. So that's not something that I have information about right now. Sorry.
Yeah. Would you be able to speak about if an asylee applicant with an employment authorization document and a social security number filed in 2018 and 2019 taxes, are they ineligible for cash assistance or unemployment?
So just so I understand, this is somebody with a social security number who did file recent taxes. And so both of those things meet 2 of the 3 eligibility points for the direct cash payment. The only other requirement is the residency requirement. So if the person has been living in the United States for the past 3 years, they would be eligible. If they are recently here, they may not be, and that's where that tricky substantial presence test comes into play. If they meet that test, they have the social security number today and they file those taxes, they should be eligible for that direct cash payment, assuming, of course, they earn $75,000 or less.
Okay, and this is a similar question or in a similar line, but again, a person that filed taxes in 2018 and 2019, a social security number in 2017, the person had a social security number as of 2017, and received their legal permanent residency in 2018. Would this person be eligible?
Most likely, yes. The only thing that I'd want to follow up on, and I'm happy to follow up on this, would be to make sure that that person does meet the residency test. Presumably, yes, if they have been in this country for 3 years or enough time to receive the green card. If that's what qualified them for it, then yes, they would. Certainly, the timing of the social security number is fine. You really only need that at the time you're seeking the direct cash payment, and the recently filed taxes help with disbursement of that cash payment, and that requirement is met. Having a green card at this time should meet the residency requirement. Yes, sorry. So if the person has a green card at this time, they would be eligible for the direct cash payment.
Thank you. And then just a couple questions left. And as these are Illinois resources and NIJC and a lot of our clients are based in Chicago, Participant is asking about City of Chicago programs. Are we aware if there's any assistance from the City of Chicago, or how are we collaborating?
I think that's a great question, and one that we can follow up on. One of the links in the Illinois English KYR and Spanish version is a link to healthcare facilities in the Chicago area. So that is a Chicago-specific source of support. Beyond that, I'd be happy offline to connect whoever asked that question with more information about what the City of Chicago specifically is doing to support our immigrant communities, especially undocumented folks. And if there's a need for that, we'd be happy to kind of add that into our Illinois-focused resource.
Okay. It seems like that is all of the questions.
Okay.
They're last-minute ones to come in.
Okay, we can wait a minute, but yes, in the meantime, please share these KYR resources as widely as possible. You can access them on our website as well, immigrantjustice.org, in the Know Your Rights section of the website. And if you have any other questions that I can be helpful with regarding access to benefits, we'd be happy to field those or address those, offline at another time. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
There was one last question before we get to the survey.
Yep.
And the question is, would using an ambulance for COVID-19 qualify for free treatment? Do we know that?
Unfortunately, I don't know the specific answer to that. I can say that what I've been told many times by other folks I've spoken with and consulted with is that it's worth applying for emergency Medicaid or Medicaid coverage of any medical service you receive for COVID. Now, whether or not that particular use will be approved or not, I don't know, but we would absolutely want to encourage that client or individual to apply for such coverage, as the general language suggests that it would be covered.
And that's all the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. As Ellen just mentioned, in this last slide, you'll see a link to a survey that will help us gauge whether this was informative and helpful and where it could have been more helpful for you. You can click on that link to go to the survey. Is that right, Ellen?
The QR code is available, and we'll also be sending the survey in a follow-up email with the information that you received today. And so please, yes, and join us at our website for additional details.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.